Hello, everyone. We're back with Ken Dombrowski, executive life coach and master hypnotist. And today I think we should talk about how sometimes when people go through our program and they're seeing progress and healing, they may not actually feel like it and feel like there's a regression taking place.
It's extremely common because it's basically human nature. We want to remember that our mind, what it's always looking for is what's wrong. It's constantly scanning our environment for what's wrong because that's a survival mechanism, helps keep you alive so you can avoid a peril. Now, that's not just going to be for actual life-saving event. It saturates into every part of how you operate. So even in a relationship, you're looking for what's wrong. Like all over social media, look out for those red flags. They're not talking about where are the green flags. Mm-hmm. They're talking about where are the red flags, right? So the same thing is happening in the mind when you come through a program like ours. And over weeks, several sessions over the course of weeks and months, I can notice, huge changes that are taking place in the client. And I ask periodically, what have you noticed? Are you noticing any relief from the depression, relief from the anxieties, the fears, whatever it is that person's coming to me for? And the initial answer is usually, not always, but most of the time going to be, no, I don't really think so. I don't think I noticed anything. Then I have to say, okay, well, you came in with debilitating anxiety, that every time you got in your car to drive, you were a nervous wreck, you're terrified, scared, palms shaking, sweating, used to have to pull over and calm down when you drive for a little bit and then get going up again. Have you had to do that recently? Oh, no, actually, I haven't done that in a few weeks now. So you see, that is a really huge measurement of progress. Or someone who has depression, and when someone has depression, one thing they just don't want to do anything. They really just want to lay down, lay in bed, lay on the couch, sleep as much as possible. And so ask them similar, have you noticed any relief from your depression? No, I don't think so. Well, you told me last week that you went to the carnival with your family. And then you told me you went for the first time in 5 years, you actually went to Thanksgiving dinner and you went to a movie. So those are things that you haven't been doing for several years and now you are doing them. So would that be, oh yeah, I guess I am feeling better. So we have to really look for what's going on and you kind of quantify it somehow, bring math into it somehow to figure out where am I at, where was I and where am I at now.
Which, I think it also goes to the idea, I think we've discussed it on one of our videos before, is like, just because someone's hard, maybe harder than you're hard, doesn't mean you react any differently. Like the hardest thing you've ever experienced is still the hardest thing you've ever experienced. So whether that be sexual assault or getting kicked on the playground by a boy, someone can have the same reaction because it's the level of hard that they know. So I feel like you're saying like the coping mechanism, just kind of having the normalness of matching that almost. Mm-hmm. It's just always going to fluctuate with you because none of our lives are perfect. You can't be happy 24/7. So it's just the mix of the two.
Well, as you say, the reason I'm smiling, and I know we've talked about this. Actually, I don't even know if I actually showed this to you on my board, but I have so many things I do on the board. I love my whiteboard. I have lots and lots of illustrations and workshops. Well, what I'll do is I'll actually put up just an L-shaped graph, and the vertical part of it's going to be a scale of 1 to 10, and then the linear is going to be time, over time. So what we do is someone who has like a 9 or a 10 on stress level, they're going to be way up there throughout time. And then also the next line is going to be, I usually use 2 different colors, like maybe red for the stress and maybe black for coping. Then I'm going to draw a coping line, and it's going to be right there matching your stress. Because if it's not, you're overwhelmed, you're debilitated, and you can't function. So you're barely getting through your day using coping mechanisms that we have built in. But now after you come through our program, a few weeks in, that 9 or 10 is going to start to taper down to 8, down to 7, down to 6, down to 5. And that, again, is weeks into the program, I'm asking people, have you noticed any changes? And they say no. Not really feeling it. So then I go through the same questions. Well, you're doing this now, you're doing that, you're not having that problem. So you're down to a 5. So what we're expecting, this is normal to expect in our mind, that there's going to now be this margin of happiness where my stress level used to be a 9 or a 10, but now it's down to a 5. So I should have this huge buffer of just excitement, exhilaration, and joy just bursting at the seams. No, it doesn't work that way. Your coping mechanism is going to very closely follow your stress. It's going to be right there, neck and neck. It's not a lag time. It's not like a month later. It's pretty much immediate. So the same thing works in the converse. If you end up having, say a reasonable 4 or 5 on the stress levels because you have a pretty well managed life, some catastrophe happens. You maybe, I hate saying this, maybe you lose a loved one or some kind of bad thing happens. So your stress now peaks out at a 10. And guess what? Right along with is going to be your coping, your ability to cope with brain chemicals, with caffeine, alcohol, sugar, carbohydrates, all kinds of smoking cigarettes, all kinds of stuff that people are going to use for coping to help them with that stress level where they're at. So your coping is going to fluctuate with your stress. There will be no gigantic margin where you're going to be just so happy you're bursting at the seams.
Right. I think it's important to kind of point out that this is the trickery that your mind puts you through. So even though we're talking about if you're here, this is going to match this. If you're here, this is going to match this. That's why it feels the same. Okay, there's an obvious difference between the things that you're doing when you're hindsight 2020ing or something like that. But in the moment, it's always going to feel like it matches the experience. So I feel like that can be a little confusing for some people. Well, if it's out of 4, then it's out of 4. Yeah, but in your head, it always feels like 10 because it's always at 100% of whatever you should be expecting for your situation. I just felt like we needed to clarify that because it can get a little confusing.
Really good. Perfect. Yes, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Well, I have this story. Time for a quick story?
Yep. This
story that I've been sharing for many, many years. Years and years ago, a friend of mine, he tells me that his teenage daughter, who I knew her, we're all friends and neighbors. She was about 14, I think, at the time. And she just didn't have any friends. She was an adorable girl, very sweet, very nice. But he said she never had friends. She'd never gone to a friend's house to play. Never in her life has had a friend come over. Never went to a slumber party. None of this. And he said it was very concerning. He said, "Would you mind talking to her?" So absolutely, I'm happy to talk to her. So I actually have her come into the office, treat it like an actual session. And it didn't take long because she was only 14 years old, so she's still really close to this traumatic experience. Well, what she had told me about, and it didn't take more than a few minutes to get to it, was when she was about 7 years old, she was playing tag on the playground at school. A bunch of kids running around laughing and tagging each other, and one boy, when he tagged her, he just shoved her really hard, and she fell on the ground. And she said, "I sat there and I cried." I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Were you hurt? Did you just scrape up your hands when you landed or your elbows?" She said, "No." "Your knees?" "No." "When he pushed you, did that hurt?" "No." So then why were you crying? "Well, I was crying because he pushed me really hard and I thought that was mean. And I was also crying because no one came to help me up. No one came to check on me. No one came to help me up. Nothing. So that's why she just sat there and cried." Okay, that was the most traumatic experience of this girl's life. And you quantify that, you go, that doesn't sound like anything. It sounds like nothing. I mean, come on, get over it, right? No, not to her. To her, that's very real. And the interesting thing is directly after that session with her, I get done with her, she leaves the office. My next client that came in was a woman who had the most manly voice you could imagine. And when I talked to her on the phone to make the appointment, she actually told me, she says, "I just want you to know, so you're not surprised, I am a woman, even though my voice sounds just like a man." I said, "Okay, well, I'm glad you told me that because I would have assumed you were a man." So, and she had one of those names that can go either way kind of thing. Don't want to say what that was, though. But anyway, she comes into my office for her first session, and she wanted to quit smoking was her big thing. Well, I noticed right away, not only does she have a man's voice, she's probably in her 50s, but a nice-looking woman who just had her hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing glasses, no makeup, flannel shirt, kind of like yours here, but really big and boxy, like it would fit me, kind of thing, and big, heavy jeans and big work boots kind of thing. And okay, well, starting to get this. She sounds like, has a voice of a man. She wants to have the appearance of a man. And didn't take long here either. She tells me that when she was about 6 years old to maybe 15 years old, she was being sexually abused by 6 men in her family. 2 older brothers, a grandfather, a couple of uncles, and a cousin. Her father was the only man pretty much in her life that wasn't sexually abusing her. And she says because he was such a severe alcoholic that he just had no sex drive at all. You know, like her mother used to complain about it. But anyway, you think about how this woman was able to have a job. She's been married and divorced, has a couple of kids, and she's able to function. And she smokes is basically her biggest vice. But of course, she dressed like a man and wants to look like a man, so no one will want to sexually abuse her anymore. Now, you think about this side by side, the 14-year-old girl with her traumatic experience on the playground versus this woman in her 50s who was sexually abused on an ongoing basis for 10 years by 6 men in her family. We want to automatically quantify it and say, oh, that woman's experience is far worse. Not to that 14-year-old girl, it ain't. Mm-hmm. To that 14-year-old girl, her one traumatic experience is as significant as everything that other person went through. And that's the big part of what we do is we will never minimize someone's experience. If anything, I'm going to go out of my way to validate your experience as being very, very real and significant in your life.
That's also something I feel the need to tell a lot of people in their discovery calls along that line is I always say, whatever comes to your head first needs to be said. I don't care if you think other people will find that to be ridiculous or pointless or goofy. I don't care whatever you are believing in your own head about said experience. I don't care how minute it sounds to you. If it's in your head, it's there for a reason. And I can't explain to people enough how much the aha moment for him comes in when someone brings up the one thing that's been in their head for 3 sessions that they just didn't say. And so I tell everyone, not only are we expecting you to be open and honest, we're expecting you to tell us everything in your head, because it doesn't have to be some crazy, terrible level 10 scale situation that is the reason that you're falling apart. It doesn't work that way. It's a bunch of tiny things building up over time for most people, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just tell us.
Exactly. Yep. So many people, they just kind of, I think, maybe get a little embarrassed, or they just don't think it's important because they're trying to minimize this thing that is really the problem. So if we minimize it, that means I don't have to face it and talk about it. But that's exactly what we have to have coming into this program. We won't let you come into our program unless you convince us that you're willing to work on facing those demons and letting them go.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we have the discovery call and the free consult and all these steps, is because we really want to make sure that this is the right avenue for somebody. We're not in the business of wasting anybody's time or money, and we don't want our time wasted as well. So for us, it's just making sure that this is a program that we believe someone can actually work with and work through properly, because we don't want to just be the next step in failed attempts and trying to fix something. We want to see results.
Yeah, exactly. Real good. Good conversation today. I like that one.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting topic because you don't really hear a lot of people talking about the regression side of what you're experiencing and the difference in those coping mechanisms. So thank you so much for all of that information.
Oh, my pleasure.
If you guys would like any more information, please visit our website. The link is in the description. Have a great day. Bye now.
Thank you.